Test, 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 test. Hello. Hi, everybody.
Can everybody hear that?
How's that?
That's good.
You're sitting right there.
I can hear you really well.
Thanks so much for having us, Lucy. We also want to thank the Okanagan Regional Library, our tech crew over here, and Fable for setting up snacks and books for us to buy. And now let me introduce my dear friend. Leslie Davidson is the author of 2 children's books, In the Red Canoe, which we have here, and The Sun is a Shine, which we also have here. Her essay, Adaption, won the CBC Canada Writes Creative Nonfiction Prize, and her work has been published in the Globe and Mail, Viewpoint, and On the Move. A retired elementary school teacher, a mother, and a grandmother, Dancing in Small Spaces is the story of a long and adventurous marriage between Leslie and her husband, Lincoln. An unstintingly honest and surprisingly humorous memoir, this love story charts a couple's parallel diagnoses of Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia. Dancing in Small Spaces was named by CBC Books as one of the 40 Canadian books we can't wait to read this October. Now please join me in welcoming our neighbor and dear friend, Leslie.
Thank you so much. Oops, am I on? I think so. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jocelyn, and everybody who's come. It's been a long time waiting for this event, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you tonight. And I'm really feeling like I belong in Revelstoke because I know everybody. I thought I would start by reading the last paragraph of the prelude, which is the introduction to the book. It's short.
Do you want to give me your warning?
Oh yes, my warning. I cry at the drop of a hat. If you look nicely at me, I will cry. If you frown at me, I will cry. If I read something happy, I will cry. If I read something sad, I will cry. Don't worry about the crying. It's inevitable. And I switch glasses a lot. And my grandkids are here. I see myself as an ancient crone, bent and addled, hand sewing a crazy quilt of all the tattered scraps of our last years. I feather stitch together the bits and pieces of our stories, and I dream that when it is finished, I will wrap it around all those who loved me. We will touch the pieces of ourselves that cling thread by thread to one another. I dream we laugh and wonder to be so comforted. The crazy quilt image stuck with me as I was trying to assemble the book, and I brought a crazy quilt that a friend sent me when I talked to her about that. So if you don't know what a crazy quilt is, it looks like this. It's random bits and pieces fit together. This one has the feather stitching I referred to. They were treasures in families that didn't have much but managed to create beauty out of the scraps of their lives. And I hope that I created some beauty out of the scraps of our lives as well. I'm going to read the longer passage that was adaptation of the CBC piece because it kind of ties beautifully together a number of our struggles at that time. He stops suddenly just as we get to the bottom of the hill. I am relieved to be off that rocky trail. My left foot won't brace like it used to, and I slide a lot. We are at a crossing point, just where the descending trail intersects the dirt path that runs along and above the river. I stop too. The crows and the ponderosas explode into cacophonous flight. Cacophonous flight. I wonder why. Do humans on the move seem more innocent to them than humans at rest? Did our abrupt stopping signal something ominous? I often wonder about crows. They are so cheeky and social, tough, confident. Everything I am not these days. I wonder what they know. As suddenly as he stopped, Lincoln starts again. He turns away from me without a word or a glance and begins to trot up the path in the wrong direction. I run to catch up, to get in front of him. A sincere smile is what I need. That and the perfect words. Where are you going, honey, I ask. Home, he says, and tries to brush past me. I stand in his way. Going in the wrong direction, I tell him brightly, and then heartened by the hesitation in his eyes, I carry on. I know I have to get this right the first time. Perhaps I shouldn't have brought him on such a long walk. I am not used to carrying a cell phone, and once again have forgotten it. I don't have a plan for what I will do if he is determined to head upriver. If he decides to go, I will have to go with him. I take silent inventory of the amount of water we have, the snacks, whether or not I packed my meds. I'm not used to having to carry them everywhere. I just wanted to take advantage of a beautiful spring morning to go for a walk. No one knows where we are. I hope they will look for us here. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone. We often walk this way. Besides, we won't be lost. We will just be going in the wrong direction. Look at the river, honey, I say. See, it's flowing that way. It's going to town. It's going home, like us. See? Remember all those times in the canoe? We put in at 10 Mile and we pulled out at the park. We came this way. The river flows this way. We follow it home, just like we always have. I am not used to this. I'm not used to living with his rapidly progressing dementia. I'm not used to being the one in charge, the boss of both of us. I'm not used to living with Parkinson's disease. I'm not used to being shaken by tremors and slowed by unresponsive muscles. I am not used to relying on pills. I am not used to his spontaneous episodes of paranoia, his belief that though I look like his wife, I am not she. I am newly a stranger to myself, and I hate being a stranger to him. I hate to not be trusted, to not be believed. The irony of it is I do lie to him. I tell him that the library is closed sometimes when it isn't, because I don't want him to go alone, and he doesn't want me with him. The dementia literature tells me it's okay to do that. It's called the therapeutic lie. I still feel guilty. I'm not used to this. Remember that time we hit the rock and I went out over the bow? That's just there, honey, just there. I probably swam right past where we are now. The river would have taken me home if I hadn't been fished out. Let's go home. It's this way, just like the river. I see his struggle as I speak. His face flickers with memory and suspicion. Damn, I'm losing this one. Losing it to derailed synaptic conversations over which neither of us has any control. His face hardens. My panic rises. Several months earlier, my doppelganger moved into our lives, and out and in, and out and in, again and again, until just the right dose of the right medication sent her packing, or so I had thought. She introduced herself the first time after a sweet shared nap one dreary winter afternoon. Do you have a twin? Lincoln asked politely. Why? I chuckled at both the question and the formality in his voice. Warned you. You look just like my wife. Oh. I did not know what to say when he asked why I was crying. Days later, an early morning phone call woke me. It was from Kathy, a close friend. She told me not to worry. He's here, she said. I hadn't even realized that he was missing. He had driven our Volkswagen camper 8 kilometers up a winding rural highway on summer tires. He hadn't driven in months. I thought I had hidden all the keys. He's looking for you. There's a strange woman in your bed. That's what he told us. He's eating a muffin. We'll bring him home. When he walked in the door, he looked at me with relief. There you are. He laughed and hugged me. We held on to each other for a long time. I could not help but weep. I'm just so happy to see you, I told him by way of explanation. I miss you when you're not here. I miss you too. That same week, we went to the movies. We had just settled into our seats when Lincoln grabbed his coat and bolted up the aisle. I followed him as soon as I could coax my reluctant left leg into action. He was heading off into the darkness on a bitter cold night, in search of me. Several good friends were just heading into the theater. I need help, I begged. Stop him. One friend gently restrained him, held him, spoke calmly. But even so, Lincoln's agitation increased. A 911 call, Flashing lights, ambulance attendants, a police car, a tall young cop, and loving faces bizarrely shining red, then blue, shocked, then sad, and finally, a curtained room in our small hospital's emergency department. The doctor on call was a gentleman and a familiar face. I stayed out of sight and I listened. I had learned the knack of crying silently. "You were pretty upset, I understand," the doctor said. "What persuaded you to finally get in the ambulance?" "Did you see the size of that cop?" That was what he said. I learned the knack of laughing silently too. And now his stony look of contempt is such an unmistakable signal of where he is at, where we are at, 1.5 kilometers from home, alone by the river, with the crows squawking and flapping above our heads. He cannot trust me, but he looks a long time at the river and somehow finds a way to trust it. He turns and heads for home. "Stay away from me," he yells. I jog up ahead and around several bends until I am sure I am well out of his sight. First, I check for my Parkinson's pills. There are none. Yes, this really needs to work. I take my sunglasses off and put my hat into my pack. I remove my sweatshirt and tie it around my waist. I make every change to my appearance I can think of. I pace up and down by the side of the trail and wait for him. I take big breaths in and out. The crows are quieter. I guess they do prefer us on the move. "There you are," he calls in delight. "Here I am." I walk to meet him. He takes my hand. He complains about the other one. "Oh, her," I say. "She's not a problem. She's just not reliable." "Not like you," he teases. "Not like me." And the last one is a really short little piece that just still makes me laugh. I am preparing for a trip to Vancouver for an appointment at the UBC Movement Disorders Clinic. John is once again going to stay with Lincoln. John is a very dear friend of ours. "Tell me again," Lincoln says. "The plan for this week?" "Yes." "Well, today John and Marianne are coming for dinner," I explain. "Then John is going to spend the night." "Right. Right. It's a practice run, so we know everything will be okay when I go to Vancouver on Wednesday." "You're coming back?" he asks. "Yes, of course, on Friday. Honey, it's all on the paper." "Right, you're coming back." "Of course, you're my guy." I pause before continuing. "That is the answer you want to hear, isn't it? That I am coming back?" I'm laughing now. I don't know if he joins me simply because my laughter is contagious or because he gets the joke. It doesn't matter. "'Cause you're stuck with me, pal. But while I'm in Vancouver seeing my Parkinson's doctor, John will be here with you." "I won't be alone?" "No, honey. Never alone." "Good," he sighs, "because someone needs to know how to run that darn TV."
Thanks so much for sharing that, Leslie. So for me, this book is a love story. It's a love story, and that really surprised me when I picked it up. And it's not just a love story of you and Lincoln. It's a love story of you and your friends, John being one of them. It's a love story of you and your communities of Grand Forks and of Revelstoke. It's a love story to your family. It's a love story to the great outdoors where you spent so much of your time. Is that what you intended when you were writing this? What were your intentions?
My intentions were to get things that were making me incredibly sad out of my head and on paper. But I think by writing it down, I got to see that my life has been blessed by the best of people, by the best of nature, by the best of family. That looking at it from a distance, imagining an audience, reading my words, helped me to understand that though things seemed dire and sad and scary, that we were not alone and that There was so much goodness coming our way.
Are there parts that you left out?
Yes. Because some things are private.
What was the hardest part to write?
Lincoln's dying and finding a way to, because it's such a big part of the story, finding a way to fit it in without exploiting the sadness, or just trying to do that with grace was the hardest thing, I think. And having to go there again and again and again with every time I read it through, with every revision.
And in that, one of the scenes where you have Lincoln in the nursing home, you talk about dancing in small spaces. And obviously that's the title. Can you explain a little bit more what that means?
Well, there are 3 incidents in the book where we dance in a small space. The first is in our Volkswagen, our first Volkswagen together, our green 1977 Westie. We were camping in Morocco. Actually, we've been invited into a small mountain village by the mayor, and for a festival, the Berber folk were down from the mountains, setting up their incredible tents and holding a festival. And the mayor showed up at the van, and about 10 o'clock at night, we were drinking mint tea and listening to Joan Baez sing Diamonds and Rust. And he came in, and we invited him to come in and have some tea, and he wanted me to dance with him, which was very weird. It's the first long story in the book. So that was the first time. That was the first dance in a small space. And then the other 2 stories take place in Lincoln's room in the cottages here. Actually, both of those took place in the cottages. One where I thought he might like to dance. It just occurred to me, and so he did. And so we started to dance regularly in his room. And the other, as he was dying, in the week that we knew he was turning his face in a new direction. My girls and my grandkids were in his room with us frequently, and Maisie was just a tiny baby. And so we were taking turns carrying her around and dancing with her in that room while Grandpa lay waiting to say goodbye.
In the book, you talk a lot about the grace that Lincoln handled his disease with, but you also show us the sacrifices and love that you put into caring for him. What do you think would happen if the roles had been reversed? She asked me to ask that question.
She's not me. I asked her to ask that question because I think it's important for people to understand that I don't think Lincoln would have done exactly what I did in one way, but he would have done exactly what I did in another. He would have done absolutely the best that he could for me, but it would be different. I'm quite happy to sit all day long with a book in my hand. I'm quite happy to sit in a small space and hold on to somebody I love. Lincoln would have lost his mind. And that's no fault of anybody. And the way we care for each other is all we can do is the best that we can. My picture of care is not going to be your picture of care or Lincoln's picture of care or necessarily anybody else's picture of care, but just the best that we can do, being who we are. And it is so important to preserve self through that process of caregiving. It's really easy to get lost in it, and then when you have nothing left, you have nothing to give. So you have to look after yourself too.
And what do you think Lincoln would say about the book?
This is a new one. I think he would be pretty pleased. I'm hoping that he would forgive me the invasion of his privacy in some of the stories. I think he would really enjoy the stories that tell about his iconoclastic, for lack of a better word, his iconoclastic way of dealing with authority and life in general. I think we would have enjoyed reliving some of his adventures. And he was proud of my writing. When I cried when I heard that The Red Canoe was going to be published, he cried too.
So how did this book come to be? You told me it was a COVID project for you.
It was. I don't think without COVID I would ever have finished it, but being forced out of my social circle and into my own company, hour upon hour, day upon day, with all of this material. Most of the book is based on emails that I wrote my family and friends during the time when Lincoln was ill, because I couldn't talk on the phone because that upset him. Understandably, hearing himself spoken about was upsetting. So he would go to bed and I would write out my day. So I had lots and lots and lots of primary source material to glean from. I did a little bit of journaling, but it's not something I've ever been very good at sustaining. I used to write in my journal when I was really mad or really happy. But I had scraps of that. And then, as I explained in the book, there were opportunities to do some more formal writing for Parkinson's associations, for dementia associations, for the Teacher's Magazine, and so I was able to use those as well. So my living room was covered with stacks of printed out stories that I ordered and reordered and reordered, and timelines, and it has changed. It was changing. The order of the pieces was changing right up until the very final revision. So it's a crazy quilt. It's a crazy quilt.
Tell us a little bit more about the publishing process.
Oh, well, I spent a year sending the manuscript off and collecting rejections. I was asked twice for the full manuscript, which is a really hopeful thing. If you send them an excerpt and they want to see more, then you go, but those two didn't pan out, and it was just, this is very echoey.
Doesn't sound that way here.
Okay, good. What was I going to say? Oh, I was ready to, my writing group knows, many who are here, thank you guys so much. I was preparing to self-publish. I wanted something for my kids and my grandkids and our closest friends, and I went back to look at the list of Canadian publishers who accept unsolicited manuscripts for memoir, and found Touchwood that I hadn't applied to, so I wrote to them and they said, let's see more, and then I waited and I gave them a little nudge, and they came back with, oh golly, we're so sorry, we've just had a staff change, and hang on, we'll get back to you. And they did, and they've been amazing. And then they give you a lot of deadlines, and you meet those deadlines, and they give you a lot of tasks of revision to do, and you do those, and along the way you learn a whole lot about writing and yourself and patience and biting your tongue and listening to the experts and letting them do their job while they support you to do yours. It's been amazing.
So what can we look forward to next? What's your next project?
Well, these days I type about 1 word a minute, so it will be nothing long, but I'm getting a cat. I'm getting a kitten, and that's what I'm thinking about most.
Thank you so much, Leslie.